Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to you too.
How are you today?
Good. Good. It's a beautiful day here in Arizona.
Nice. Yeah, we finally have a really nice day here too. It's full spring and it's 70 degrees and sunny.
Yeah. So it's a good
It,
day.
it is a good day. So tell me what you have been up to. Anything new and exciting as far as who you've been talking to?
Oh, Katie, there are so many important people that I've been talking to all around the world that it's hard for me to keep track of when I did what.
Wow. Well, good. Well, you've been having some interesting conversations, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. I talked to David Melcher's group the other day, and he's a sports person. He's somebody in the sports world.
Okay.
And we had a real good hour-long conversation, and it was important. We were talking about things that were important to us, but they were important to other people, to the
Mm,
world people.
yes. Well, I love that. Mm. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and maybe just put the seed out there already, is that Linda Kale is saying that she listened to that
Yeah.
interview.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's great. Um, is that they were supposed to be doing a retreat like in June of this year based on your book,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so that is what got moved to October.
All right.
Correct. Yeah. And so I think that'll be posted on your website, on the Foundation for Living Medicine website. So
Okay.
people can go check that out. Somebody's asking, what interview are we talking about? Who was the person you mentioned again?
David Meltzer.
Okay.
He's somebody in the sports world. I don't know what his position is, but he's been a friend of mine for many years, and he has a group of people and a podcast.
Okay.
So
Great. So yeah, you could look on podcasts, but are those being listed on your website or on the foundation's website?
they should be on the
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't.
Okay.
It's hard to keep track of what's happening. It changes,
Right.
but it should
Okay.
be.
All right. So yeah, people can look that up.
Yeah,
All right. Good.
look for the foundation
Okay.
website.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Well, so I would imagine, speaking of somebody's here from British Columbia, uh,
Great.
um, just in your book when you talk about juice and finding your purpose and all of that, I would imagine having all of these different conversations with all of these important people all over the world and being interviewed is totally got you in your juice and on your purpose.
Oh, it's breathtaking, because I think our human race is beginning to reach back up for our true humanity. And it's a real purpose which we're each one here for. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's important for us to vote. We've got our voting coming up. Let's every one of us vote, because that identifies who and what we are, both to our country, but to ourselves. We identify ourselves for who we are when we vote. It's an important act of conscious um, awareness of the fact that it's that we are one individual, like a piece in the jigsaw puzzle. We're
Mm-hmm.
important, we're essential to the proper working of our country. And so I think it's a good thing for us to be uh, aware of and actually do the act of voting. You know, I think it's important to do.
Yes, I also agree. And somebody is making a comment. I agree. I think a universal shift is happening. Through pain comes sunshine.
Yeah, the light comes after the
Right.
darkness. The light always supersedes the darkness. The darkness fades away.
And somebody's asking, how does Dr. Gladys deal with the heartbreak of humanity like genocide?
How do I feel about genocide?
Well, how do you deal with that heartbreak?
Oh, it's painful. It's bad. It's not good. But we learn from it. We find out what it is trying to teach us. And if we learn from that, the light comes on.
Mm,
That's the thing. We go through the darkness. We don't just turn off the lights, we turn them back on. Light comes back into our lives when we seek it. If we're not looking for it, it doesn't come back.
well, so in your personal day to day, if you become, I mean, if you watch the news, if you listen to things, like that this horrible atrocities are happening, do you take that in and then pray about that and pray for those people? Or like, what do you personally do to transmute that, like she was saying, the question, like that heartbreak?
Well,
And when you
I,
so
I,
help us.
yeah. First of all, I bless the people who are going through it
Mm,
because it's an issue, but it's very real, and the people are going through it, and then uh, try to try to find some lesson behind that for myself. I may not find it, but sometimes in the process of listening to what somebody else is saying, there's a lesson for me too, because we're all human and we're all working with the same kind of stuff. It's just different voices speaking that kind of stuff.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. It is challenging.
And then if I can find that there's a way of reaching and helping somebody else with an understanding on that, it reaches out from, it helps my life force and my understanding grow. So it's that reaching from one to the other to try and help and see what we can do, not to interfere with what they're doing. It's not to take over and say, well, you're doing the wrong thing. This is what you should do.
Right.
I don't do that. I think it's important to listen to what they're saying and doing, and then see how that fits into the whole conversation and the whole life pattern and so on that we're talking about.
Mm. So this person said, thank you. I do pray for them daily, even through tears.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think, so one of the things we were going to talk about today, or I wanted to share, was the sweat lodge that I did last weekend.
yes,
And I feel like even, things like that, there were 20 of us there intentionally praying for ourselves, but also for humanity in
yeah,
the setting of nature, really connecting to an indigenous way of being. And it was just amazing. So, my partner Rob asked me, well, what was your favorite part? And I was like, you can't even say a favorite part because it's all an embodied experience of being with people in nature with the intentional prayer of fire, putting intentions into the fire, then singing songs in native Ojibwe tongue, and sitting in a dark sweat lodge for 2 hours, you know, having a spiritual process. So the whole thing is just so amazing. And I just think doing things like that with a collective is how we can shift the energy of the planet. Like,
Oh, absolutely. And each one of us can find different ways of doing that
right.
if we're looking for them. But it's that process of looking for them. They're there. Sometimes a church will have a specific way of calling on uh, the deep spirit within each one of us. But sometimes it's not a church. Sometimes it's just a group of people who are like we used to have a Sunday, a Tuesday evening study group that studied the Edgar Casey work, and it was very, very helpful to those of us who were working with that for years. So we find what it is that is helpful to us and work with that.
Mm.
And oh my, life becomes so rich.
Yeah, and I think just that communication with other people who are willing to become vulnerable and have big, deep, connected feelings. Yeah, it's just a really beautiful, beautiful thing. Hang on, somebody's saying it's amazing how much one person's kindness can have a ripple effect and with the community. Yes.
Well, and
And
the beautiful thing about that too is when you do it, it doesn't die. You
mm,
know, that you work with that, and it takes on a life of its own because it creates the energy and the love and the healing and forgiveness and understanding and all of that in other people as they share the whole concept with us. And it's a growing process. Life and love have to work together. And when they work together, it's growth and it's real.
right. Your grandson just posted the podcast. It was the Paradigm Shift with Craig Siegel and David Meltzer.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, yeah. That's my grandson.
Right. Right. Right.
My son John's son.
Got it. So I mean, growing up in Arizona, like I asked, the man that led the sweat lodge is more familiar with the Native American tribes of the Northeast. And I asked him if he had any knowledge about the Pima Indians, just because that was what I was more familiar with living down the street from you. Did you have any connection to the Native Americans in Scottsdale and in around you?
Not directly then, but right now, uh, we have very strong connection with oh, what's her name? Standing Tall.
Oh, right.
Uh, oh, I forget my kids' names, you know.
Patricia.
Patricia Standing Tall.
Right. And
Yeah, and she is doing really good work.
what tribe is she of?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I really I there's so many things to remember.
No, no, no. Um, but somebody did have a question here for you, so hold on. Okay, someone is saying she mentions memory lane a lot. How does she face the negative memories?
How do I face a negative memory?
Yes.
Well, to me, a negative memory is something that I need to learn from. In other words, there's something there that I, it's negative. I don't particularly like it, but there's something that I can question. And when I begin to question it, it becomes something that has an answer within it. And if I don't get it right away, I put it down on memory lane and find out later what it's all about. But these are things that are impacting our lives, and we don't understand why at the time, a lot of times. So if we just don't try to just get over them, but try to understand what they're saying to us, and then learn from that and go on. It's a matter of understanding what this process is, and it's individual, and it's a not just a thought process, but it has to do with feelings and understanding. It may have to do with a relationship with a certain person
Mm,
that that we have difficulty working with, or just understanding, or really accepting their philosophy in with ours. It's how we fold the process of life and experience with other people and the world around us into and with our own lives. And as we begin to understand that, life becomes richer. And if we do it with love, and not try to condemn
mhm.
what the other person is doing, or what we have um, uh, what we think they are doing, or whatever it is, it doesn't help to condemn what we are doing or what other people are doing, but understanding it is another thing.
So, are you suggesting that if a memory holds a negative charge,
Yeah,
that there's still learning to be done, which is why it feels negative? And
probably.
and
Yeah, there's certainly some energy there that hasn't been dealt with, and we need to look at it again. And we may not have the answer yet. It may be something that we need to live through a little longer and have more experience with. Whatever it is, it's a living process.
mm, because once you, like with your, I'm just going to use your relationship to when you were getting a divorce,
Yeah.
and how hard that was, and there was a lot of emotion around that process. But once you worked through all of it, you could look back on it without the charge and without being attached to the emotion. It's just what happened.
It's what happened, and I learned from it that I got my
Right,
independence from
right,
it.
right.
So there are big lessons that we learn, and sometimes just little lessons that just something that, yeah, okay, I get that too.
Yeah, it definitely feels challenging when you're in the, when a negative memory is coming up, or there's something that, not even, just being like mad at yourself for having done something, like that shame piece that comes around if you've done some behavior that you're,
Yeah.
uncomfortable with, and you feel bad that you've done it, or the way that you've moved through the world might not have been, of the highest good. um,
Or there's some person who, within our own experience, brings up a negative feeling. There's somebody who has been whatever, if I look back at my first grade teacher who called me the class dummy, I can get very sucked down into that little hole
Right.
there. But it's understanding what it is that we've lived through, and actually, hopefully, at this point, grown out of. But if we haven't, then take a fresh look at it and see what more there is there to learn.
Okay, I have another question here. Oops, where'd it go? Okay, there. How do we face ourselves, the mistakes we have done in our lives that caused wasted time, lost opportunities, loss, etc., the regret? How can we make up for all the damage and live better?
We take the steps that are at our right here, right now, and work through them. You know, the things that we did in the past are things that from which we learn. And if we can learn the lessons, if we're still having trouble learning the lessons from them, they probably are going to hang around a little while longer.
Mm.
But if we've learned the lesson from them, then we go on. We just kuchparwane it. It doesn't matter. We drop it. It's not worth carrying anymore. We've done what we could do, and we see no other steps at this point. Then let it go. Just let it go. Like compost, like uh, s- uh, you know fertilizer in the garden. It's
Right.
something you let go, and it enriches the whole environment because it's now allowed to go on and do what it needs to do. Whatever that experience is, whatever that emotion, whatever that thought or that uh, thing that happened in our lives, whatever it is, if it's holding us back, take another look at it and see what we haven't learned, and then go on from that.
You know, it's interesting. I was mentioning to you earlier about just having done a course with Kate Northrup, who is Christiane Northrup's
Right.
daughter. And
Yeah.
so she does her whole thing is um, teaching mostly women, but teaching people how to be in right relationship with money.
Oh,
And one of the things that she is really utilizing is the nervous system. And the thing that's super interesting about it, because it applies to all aspects of your life, and I think it applies to this particular question, is that, we come into this life either with our past life stuff that we come in and bring it forward, and or our nervous systems also grow in response to what our childhood environment is like.
right.
And so we get this, she calls it a range of resonance. So for instance, if you grow up in a chaotic household, your nervous system becomes accustomed to chaos. And that is what feels safe. And so anytime you going forward, anytime you try to grow or you try to change and you go outside of that range of resonance of chaos, your body is going to shut it down and you're going to draw in an experience to bring back the chaos because our nervous systems are wired to keep us safe. And anything outside of the range of resonance is considered a threat. So the cool thing is we just need to keep signaling safety.
Yeah.
That will help our nervous systems expand so that we can change and we can grow and we can let go of those old ways of being and the regret that we have. And there's some really simple ones, like rubbing your arms together like you were rubbing lotion on your hands. Like
Uh-huh.
that is a vagus nerve stimulator. or just deep breathing into your back ribs. Like there's really some really easy ones to just shift that nervous system.
There's so much to learn, isn't there?
I know.
But and if we're wanting to learn it, it's there. It's around us, but it's not compulsory. It's a choice.
Right.
And if we choose to keep living and growing and understanding things, including the world around us, the people around us, the I have a daughter-in-law that not no she's well she's yeah she's a daughter-in-law who is studying indigenous plants. And I think that's such an interesting thing to be studying, what it is that is native to your community. You find something like that and it becomes absolutely intriguing.
Right. And, there's, like you said, there's so many different ways to learn. There's so much out there. And so for me, as a chiropractor, the nervous system, I was all in. I was like, oh, this is such great work. And it just made so much sense to me. But
Yeah,
I love the idea of, foraging and indigenous plants and, just creating a more sustainable world through what's around us. That's
right,
great. And or using it for medicine, right? And creating
right.
poultices. Can't say that word. We did have, hang on, there was some questions in here. Let me see. I thought. Lots of people are saying spot on, love this conversation. Oh, somebody's at the course was called The Wide Receiver, and her name is Kate Northrup. And if you follow her on Instagram, she's puts tons of stuff out there all the time.
Kate Northrup. Oh,
Yeah,
hi,
yeah.
Kate. You were just a baby when I knew you.
Oh, that's so great. Right.
Yeah,
Because so Christiane Northrup has two daughters, and
yeah,
Kate is the one of them. Cool.
right.
Um,
Your mother brought you to board meetings, and she started nursing you at the table, and a couple of the guys were offended by that, and they said, this is when I was president of the AHMA, and they said, Gladys, come here. So we went over to the corner, and they said, how can you let her do that? And I said, oh, for pity's sake, grow up and go sit down.
wow.
But it's one of my precious memories.
Oh, that's so beautiful. But wait a second. There were people that were in I can't ever say
There
that,
were a couple of guys
in the
who
whole,
really, yeah, they had, uh, they were in our
yeah,
meeting. They were doctors who were looking for holistic medicine, and they were offended by the fact that Chris was sat at the table and very respectfully, with a shawl over her shoulder and the baby underneath,
right.
started nursing the baby. And I was delighted with it, and other people were, but these two guys were offended. So that
That's
they called me, and I told them to go sit down and grow up, because if they were going to be part of our board,
right.
they better understand this kind of
Yeah,
work.
yeah. I think that was what surprised me is that they would even be on your board and they would not be comfortable with breastfeeding.
Yeah, well, people don't, they learn what they learn. And these two guys had not, that wasn't, that wasn't part of what they had learned yet. And so they had to learn it. It comes along and it smacks you in their face and you have to learn it, or you get kicked out.
Yeah. So did they get it
Yeah,
together?
I told him, go sit down and grow up.
That's so funny. So, Linda, and maybe you have an answer to this because I don't really. Somebody's asking, Katie, how do you retrain your brain to get rid of pain, please, in your back for a friend? Asking for a friend. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, again, from my perspective, pain is symptom. It's all just your body talking to you, letting you know that something has gone awry. And from an emotional perspective, that's the thing, is to dive in that response. But what would you have to say about that?
Well, try to understand what the pain is saying. I mean, if it's a pain in your shoulder or a pain in your neck, if it's a pain in your eye, if it's pain in your eye, maybe you're not seeing things quite right. Pain in your shoulder, you're carrying too much load. There are ways of looking at the different aspects of pain. If
Right.
it's a bellyache, maybe you're just not eating the right things. And so it's what's this pain telling me?
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting, and I think so many people live with pain. I mean, I have pain in my body, and I'm always asking myself, okay, what are you trying to,
Yeah,
what are you trying to tell me here?
yeah, 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 yeah. Even if it's a pain in your little toe,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
uh,
there's some message there. You got a shoe wrong or something, but maybe you're going in a little bit in the wrong direction. There's just a lot of things that you can your unconscious will bring up to you for you to take a look at. And maybe it doesn't need to be corrected. Maybe it just needs to be lived with.
hmm, and love.
Yes.
Somebody's asking, is pain natural? Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's part of life. Light and darkness, good and evil. Evil isn't necessarily, uh, it's, we think of evil as really being bad, but really, a lot of the things that is, which we interpret as being um, evil. Well, the word evil is hard because
Yeah.
it means that it's really bad. But if we interpret some of the things that are just learning experiences for us as being really evil, they take on huge dimensions. But if we can look at them as learning experiences, we can learn from them. And, they just kind of diminish. They're not evil, they're inconvenient, or they're something you just need to grow out of.
It's interesting because, everybody's pain response is so different. And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've had people come in and say, they've never had low back pain in their life, and they bent over to tie their shoe and their back goes out, and now they're in a ton of pain. And I take an x-ray and I look at their spine, and according to what I see on the x-ray, you would think that they would have had pain all along because there was so much degeneration in that joint,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
so it's interesting to me. The question is, well, why weren't you experiencing pain? Or are you that disconnected from your body that you just overrode the pain? And,
Yes.
just didn't, because I think that so many people are disconnected to their body.
Well, there are all those questions that we as people in the healing profession have to look at for the person, because they've grown with those and sort of become process that they don't pay any attention to until all of a sudden it gets to the point where, whoa, this
Right.
is this is bad. But it's that kind of think that life is a learning experience every minute that we take a breath.
Right. Right. I have another pain question, sort of. How can I strengthen my wrist after a Colles fracture? It is very well functional after 3 months, but the wrist is very loose with lots of scar tissue.
Keep working with it. You get a therapist who can help you
Right.
with some exercises. Put a castor oil pack on if it's hurting you a lot and wear that for a while, but get somebody to help you to do the exercises that need to be done and stop doing the things that are making it worse.
Right.
See, we maybe it's the way you hold your spoon.
Right.
You know, something, some little thing that pulls the wrong tendons in your wrist, but you just find a person who knows the anatomy of the wrist and how to deal with it, and can work with you in uh, in rebuilding, or ask your dreams. You know,
Mm,
think about it for a while and look at your wrist and see what your how it works, and then ask your dreams. You may have an answer sitting right there in your head.
right. And then somebody's asking, is it natural to hold on to pain? Where was that question? Yeah, is holding on to pain natural? I mean, I think we do it, but I don't think we don't need to do it, but we do it.
It's a natural process which we can grow through. A lot of people, if you don't grow through it, if you just think you can get over it, you stuff it down into a drawer, but it sits there. So it's a matter of what you do with the pain. If you work with it so that you understand what it's telling you, or your body understands it, or you begin to work with it in a way that is workable for you, and it becomes a process that you have not just stuffed away and said, well, I've got to get over this. No, you don't get over it. You just, if you think you've gotten over it, you've kind of stuffed it probably
Mm,
and said, yeah, well, I'm done with that. Well, maybe that's the way it needs to be handled, but if you still have it, then you know, probably need to take another look at it and see what it is that you stuffed that you didn't deal with.
right. And I would just respond to that the wrist pain, not pain, but working with it. I've had great success with acupuncture and
Oh yeah,
really just getting all of that energy flowing properly through my body has been super helpful.
acupuncture is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yes, somebody's saying, yes, getting over it is just stuffing it down. So true. Brilliant.
You want to hear the story about how acupuncture came to the States?
Yes, please.
Bill McGarry, my husband, was writing a newsletter called Pathways to Health, and we got a letter from a mailman in Maine. This is
Yeah.
in the
70s.
70s. So a mailman in Maine who said, um, "I want to find out what happened." He said, "I for 3 months I've not been able to do my route. I couldn't walk my route because I injured my ankle. But yesterday I got your letter, and it was suggesting that I use a castor oil pack on my neck if I had a sore throat." Well, I had a sore throat. I put a castor oil pack on my neck, and the next morning my pain was gone in my ankle. He said, if you can tell me why putting a castor oil pack on in my neck took care of the ankle pain when for 3 months I'd gone to specialist after specialist and I couldn't get any help. So Bill and I looked at each other and we said, we don't have a clue. So he wrote that story up in a newsletter. And the next month, we got a letter from a Dr. Ian Urquhart in Italy. And he said, if you guys knew anything about acupuncture, you would know that the meridian that started up by the nose and right down the neck and into the ankle was was connected,
Right.
and that when the block was taken out of any part of that, it helped the other parts of it. And we said to each other, what's this acupuncture stuff? And so we began writing to people like a, a guy in Great Britain who had written 5 books about acupuncture. And we began writing to people in China and Japan and Germany. And people had been working with acupuncture all over the world,
Mm.
and we didn't have any inlet to it. But boy, did that start coming in. And so after that, we began getting acupuncture into all different aspects of our medical community.
And so how did you, hang on, I just have to say something to this person, Jess, no, not active. We're not having a conversation about food. So if you could keep your comments out, that would be great. Thank you. Um, how did you first get an acupuncturist to come to the States then?
Well, after we wrote to different we invited them, and we had the first acupuncture symposium at Stanford in 1973, and there were uh, 200 doctors there from around California, but we had invited the acupuncturists that we had communicated with in England and in Germany and in Japan and in China, different places where we'd communicated with acupuncturists, and we had this symposium, and it was huge. There were 280 doctors from California and around the state that came to Stanford for that, and from that, and oh, interestingly enough, Nixon had just gone to China and seen an appendectomy with the only anesthesia being acupuncture,
Wow.
and so that he was talking about that, and we were coming in with it from the medical point of view. So it was the right time and the right place.
That's so amazing. I love that. So you guys were responsible for bringing acupuncture to the States.
I think so.
I think
Yeah.
so. All right. So here's another question. What is the difference between castor oil in a jar and a castor oil pack? Oh, okay. If I only have castor oil, how would I use it on my wrist?
Make a pack out of, take some cloth, make it soak it with castor oil, not drippy, but soak it with castor oil, wrap it around your wrist, and sleep with it on, work with it on, do it until it's absorbed by the skin and taken into the deeper lymphatics and does its healing.
If she doesn't have the cloth, just rub it on.
Right. If you don't have the cloth, you can just rub it on.
Oh,
And
sure.
you can go on Amazon and there's a company called Queen of Thrones, and they make castor oil packs that are really easy to use. So just check it out and you'll get a good visual about how that looks and works. And then one last question, because then it's time for us to go. Is there a holistic way to improve egg quality for fertility at the age of 43?
What, what,
She is wanting to a holistic way to improve the quality of her eggs in fertility, and she's 43 years old.
that's a very complicated question. I can't, you, uh, talk to somebody who is able to spend time with you and work with you on this. Read my book, it might help some, but do some investigating into it. It's not a simple
Right.
answer.
Right. Somebody else just said acupuncture saved me from a terrible shoulder injury. Everything else I tried didn't work. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Good. Well, yay. Another good conversation.
Yep.
Love
All
it.
right, go vote when
Yes,
it's time.
go vote, everybody. Let's do our part to make sure that
Democracy. We believe in democracy.
we do believe in democracy, which is a beautiful thing. So, all right. Well, do you have a big week? I'm sure you do have all these big interviews happening.
Yep.
Okay.
All
Enjoy
right.
that. That just feed your soul.
And God bless you all.
Yes. And thank you all for being here. So appreciate the questions and just love being part of this whole community. So, yay.
Yes.
All right. Love you.
Love you all.
Okay. See you
Bye-bye.
next week.